There are so many freaking amazing Super Nintendo games. Some of the most popular games of all time are Super Nintendo games, but also a ton of amazing games that most people don't know about. There were over 700 games released in North America alone, and I've been on the hunt to find the best games that flew under the radar. My list of potential hidden gem games is so long for this system, it's almost daunting to narrow it down. I did my usual hidden gem hunting method and I have almost 100 potential games to share. And the worst part is that I can't show them all to you today. I mean, I could if I only spent like 10 seconds on each game, but that won't do. I want to spend at least a couple minutes to be able to properly pitch each of these hidden gems to you, which means I can only do 5 per video to keep the videos a reasonable length. That's what I've been doing so far. I've done hidden gem videos for Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, Sega Genesis, NES, and now it's Super Nintendo's turn. So obviously this is only my first SNES hidden gems video, and there will be many more to come. So get subscribed if you like this sort of thing. Real quick, before we get into the games, the featured handheld of the day that I'm going to be showing you all these games on is this, the new Smoky Black Amberlick RG35XX Plus. This was sent to me by my buddies over at Late NXT, and it's an amazing little handheld. Perfect for Super Nintendo. I'll toss a link to this in the description below if you'd like to pick one up. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, freaking shut up and show me the games, you obnoxious dork. And to that I'd say, wow, that was rude. But I'd still show you the games because I'm just that kind of guy. I think most people know about Zombies Ate My Neighbors on the Super Nintendo, but not many people know that there is a sequel. This is the sequel, obviously. It's called Ghoul Patrol. It's very similar to Zombies Ate My Neighbors, but in some ways it's not similar because it's different in those ways. Zombies was an arcadey shooter game, and this is that, but Ghoul Patrol has more puzzle game style elements to it. Just like the first game, Ghoul Patrol can be a 1 or 2 player game, so you can play it in local couch co-op with your friend or your girlfriend's boyfriend, but even as a single player experience, this game is a hoot. The vibe of the game is super campy. You play as Zeke or Julie, the same characters from the first game. The scene is set with an intro cutscene. Check it out, dudes. There's a cool exhibition about ghosts and demons of the Dark Ages at the library. Surely nothing could go wrong with that. Oh, wait. Oh, something did. What a surprise. Your job is to save everyone. You walk around the level looking for survivors. You have a crossbow with infinite ammo, but you can also pick up weapons and power-ups like this potion that turns you into the Grim Reaper. The puzzle aspect comes into play because there's an emphasis on level exploration and unlocking areas. You have a limited number of keys. You need to find those, and the levels are sort of mazes where you need to figure out how to get to the survivors trapped beyond the walls that are blocking you. The gameplay is fun, but the art really takes the whole thing to the next level. The pixel art is super detailed. Everything from the backgrounds, to the environmental effects, to the characters, to the enemies. There are all these little details and animations that make the whole world feel like this living place. I mean, it is a living place. The books are alive and attack you, but like, you know what I mean. I love the enemy variety. Lots of references to movie monsters and even popular culture like this monster in a trash can that's obviously Oscar the Grouch. It's just a fun game to play and a fun world to explore, and the fact that you could do it with your best buddy couch co-op style is what the Super Nintendo is all about. I'm a big fan of beat-them-ups games, one of my favorite genres of retro games. There's something so delightfully mindless about them. Just turn off your brain and walk right and mash the attack button and see the quote-unquote story unfold. Capcom has made many a fine beat-them-up game, but King of Dragons is one that flew under my radar and lots of other people's too, I think. This is a pretty typical 2-player co-op beat-them-up in some ways, but it's also unique in several ways that make it a bit different than other games in the genre. To start, it's an RPG-ish beat-them-up. You pick from a set of 5 characters, the elf with his bow, the wizard, the fighter, the cleric, and the dwarf. And as you go through the game, you actually level up. It's pretty basic leveling up. You just kind of increase your attack power and distance, but it does add that RPG satisfaction to seeing your character improve. And there's also gear, and you can actually see the gear on your character, so it's kind of cool to see your barbarian carrying a fancy sword now. or whatever. Each character has a unique playstyle, and unlike lots of beat 'em ups, you don't get to change characters throughout the game. Whoever you pick at the start is who you'll be stuck with. And that's good because it gives you buy-in to the character's progression. The game is only 1 hour long, so it's not the end of the world to play through multiple times. I think that's actually kind of intended. You play through with different characters and it kind of feels different every time. Another interesting thing here compared to lots of other games is the pacing. The levels are super short. We're talking 1 or 2 minutes, sometimes even less. You're zipping around the overworld map. This adds a ton of variety to the areas and the enemies. You know, 1 minute you're fighting orcs in the forest, and the next you're fighting skeletons on a ship, and then you're on a beach fighting harpies. This is the kind of game that young TechDweeb would have loved, and it's a shame that I didn't have it back in the day because I know I would have played the snot out of it. Ah well, at least I have it now, and I can play twice as much of the snot out of it to make up for lost time. This here is Wild Guns. A friend put this on my radar recently. I had no idea about it, but he thought I'd like it because I like a game on PC called Bot Vice, and he was right. I do love it, and it does have Bot Vice vibes. The setting is basically the Wild West, but with robots. You're a cowboy or a cowgirl, 2 characters to choose from, and it's a turn-of-the-century kind of time period set in the American West, so you got wooden buildings and saloons, gold mines, that sort of thing, but it's robots too. Why are there robots? Because shut up, that's why. Just shoot the robots and don't question these things. This game is an arcade shooter and it plays very well on the Super Nintendo. You can run and you can shoot. You can't run and shoot at the same time though. So you'll plant yourself and blast away, and when you need to move, you'll be doing a dodge roll or jumping around to avoid the bullets. The enemies telegraph their shots, so thankfully they take a few moments to arrive, so you usually have lots of time to get out of the way if you're paying attention. You have a standard pea shooter to start with, but you can pick up guns like grenade launchers and shotguns and machine guns. You also have a limited number of your screen clearing super move. Each area has a boss at the end, and there are several areas per level. When you beat the first level, you get to choose between 4 other levels, and you have to clear them all before you can move on to the end of the game, I guess. I don't know. I've never got that far. This game is freaking hard, man. It's fair, you can be skilled enough to beat it, but you have to be in the zone. I absolutely love the gameplay. I want to play this a lot and get good because I'm hooked. Is this one actually a hidden gem though? I don't know. I didn't know about it, and I've never seen anyone talk about it, so let me know in the comments if you knew about this one. And if you didn't know about it, then definitely try it out, because it's a hoot. Recently, my friend brought his Switch over, and he shoved a controller in my hand, and he told me that he needed my badass dweeby gamer skills to beat a game to help him unlock some new characters. The game was the new Switch re-release of Ninjawarriors for the Super Nintendo. We did beat it, but it was freaking hard. It took us like a few hours, I think. Honestly, it was a blast, and it was like an instant great gaming memory. And the Super Nintendo original is basically the same game, except that it doesn't have characters to unlock. There is a story to the game. There is this evil corporation led by this Banglar guy, and he's brainwashed the world, but you're part of an experimental resistance force of cyborg ninjas. Which means that you obviously just need to kill everything that moves and defeat the big bad guy at the end. The game is a side-scroller game, but it plays more like a beat-them-up game, but also sometimes more like a fighting game. You can choose between 3 characters, and each one plays quite differently. One guy is a big buff guy named Ninja, but he's slow and he can't jump. He does have a dash though. Next is a small, agile ninja girl named Kunoichi, and she's got some directional attacks, and she's good at chucking people around. And the third is this robot praying mantis dude named Kama Itachi, and his thing is that he's just a fast attacker. Button mash with him and just shred through the bad guys. There's a lot of variety in the enemies of the game. It's constantly throwing new enemy types and different environmental challenges at you to mix things up. The bosses especially, some of them are real noodle scratchers, trying to figure out how you're actually supposed to beat them without dying in the first 10 seconds. The game is definitely easy on the eyes. I was loving the pixel art. There are lots of depth to the background, lots to look at, great colorful characters. This game feels like a real throwback to the good old days. It sort of has like a Saturday morning cartoon vibe, which I love. This is not the kind of game that I would have tried on my own if my buddy didn't shove a controller in my hands, but I'm glad he did because it's an awesome game that is held up wonderfully by today's standards. You gotta try this one out. When I first got into emulation back in high school in like the late 90s, it was uncharted territory, and I went deep into the NES and Super NES library because it was the first time that I ever had access to hundreds of games. One standout memory is when I discovered E.V.O Search for Eden and played through the whole game on the school library's computers. This is such a unique game and I love this game so much, and to this day I rarely hear anyone mention it, so it had to make this list. This game is about evolution. Very few games have tackled the topic of evolution, which is kinda weird if you think about it. That this huge aspect of why we're here on this earth making root beer and babies and emulating SNES games is a topic that's barely touched in gaming. Unless you don't believe in evolution. In which case, have you tried Noah's 3D Ark? Haha, look at that. You can put the goats to sleep, just like Noah did. Probably. In E.V.O, you start out as a fish and you swim around eating stuff, and the food that you eat is your currency for upgrading body parts. Some of the parts are for, agility and movement, some are for defense, some are for offense. It's sort of RPG-ish because there's stats and upgrades, but it plays like an action platformer game. And there is a tangible satisfaction from upgrading a body part and then being stronger and faster. There are several eras that you go through as you progress through the game. You start in the water and then you get to the era of amphibians and then the era of dinosaurs and then the ice age where mammals become a thing and you get to decide if you're going to become a mammal. And then the final era is the era of man, where you can choose to actually evolve into a human or stay as a lizard and become a monkey eating crocodile or whatever. This is why it's fun to play through multiple times, because you can take a different evolutionary path and become a different creature. It's the kind of game that's got really basic mechanics, but it has a unique premise that makes you want to see it through. It's a bit grindy, a bit janky, but honestly, it's one of my favorite SNES games. I just keep coming back to it. And that's it. That's all I have for you today. 5 of my own personal Super Nintendo hidden gems, hopefully a few that you didn't know about, and all of them worth your time, in my opinion, which is the best opinion. So grab your smoky black RG35XX Plus and give these a try. And if you don't have a smoky black RG35XX Plus, you can grab one from the link below. Or just download the games and play them on your device of choice. I don't care what you do, as long as you play fun games that make you happy, damn it. Speaking of which, if you have any Super Nintendo games that you love that most people don't know about, I'd love to hear about them. Your personal SNES hidden gems, what are they? I'll read every comment, and if you put a game on my radar that I didn't know about and I include it in a future video, I'll give you credit in the video. Isn't that fun? Yes, it is. If you like this video, then check out some of my other Hidden Gems videos. There will be a playlist popping up on the screen in just a moment. And that's it from me for today. I'm TechDweeb, I love you, bye-bye.